The Putin regime has suffered its biggest geopolitical defeat in decades. Syria's new authorities have offered NATO member Turkey military bases in place of Russian ones, effectively ending the Kremlin's multi-billion-dollar investment in supporting the Assad regime, 4 Syrian intelligence sources told Reuters. Moscow risks permanently losing 2 strategically important facilities, the airbase in Khmeimim and the naval base in Tartus, which will sharply limit its capabilities in the region and Africa. The head of the Syrian transitional government, Ahmed al-Sharaa, met with Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan to discuss a defense pact that includes the establishment of 2 Turkish military bases in eastern Syria in the desert region of Badiya, permission for the Turkish Air Force to use Syrian airspace, the creation of a new Syrian army with the support of Turkey to replace Assad's disbanded troops, Turkey's commitment to ensuring Syria's security from external threats. These steps mean that Moscow is losing its last levers of influence over the new Syrian regime. Since Bashar al-Assad's overthrow in December, Moscow has tried unsuccessfully to maintain its bases in Khmeimim and Tartus. A Russian delegation arrived in Damascus on January the 28th, but the talks reached a dead end. Moreover, the new Syrian authorities demanded that Russia extradite the fugitive Assad and pay reparations for supporting his regime. Bloomberg sources note that Ankara is actively opposed to the preservation of Russian military facilities since Turkey supported the Syrian revolution and is interested in Russia's complete withdrawal from the region. The loss of the Tartus base, which gave the Kremlin access to the Mediterranean, destroys Russia's strategic ambitions in the Middle East and Africa. Russia also loses a key hub for the movement of troops, mercenaries and weapons. The Kremlin has spent a decade pumping billions of dollars into supporting Assad, supplying him with weapons, sending military advisors and funding Russian military operations. Now all that money has gone up in smoke. The contract with Stroy Transgaz for the management of the port in Tartus has been terminated. Military equipment stationed in Syria is being removed on an emergency basis. Russian sea vessels have been waiting for weeks for permission to enter the port. Moscow has lost one of its key outposts and will no longer be able to use Syria as a staging base for operations in Africa. The collapse of Russian policy in Syria is part of a larger process of weakening the Kremlin on the international stage after catastrophic military failures in Ukraine, an economic downturn, and the growing influence of China. Russia is losing the last vestiges of global influence. While Putin clings to power, his geopolitical projects are collapsing one after another. Now Russia is not just weakened, it is being forced out, even from those regions where it recently felt like the master.
Students from several schools in the Los Angeles area walked out of class and protested in front of the city courthouse. According to Associated Press, the student-led demonstration took place days after another group of protesters shut down a major highway in response to the Trump administration's mass deportation policy. Marchers carried Mexican and American flags, and speakers expressed outrage about the rhetoric from Trump and his administration's moves to increase deportations. Cities like Phoenix, Dallas and Asheville, North Carolina, have seen similar demonstrations as people voiced their opposition to President Donald Trump's mass deportation plans. People are in a state of limbo here in Ciudad Juarez, along the Texas-Mexico border. According to Associated Press, 25% tariffs on Mexican imports were supposed to go into effect on Tuesday, and border cities like this one were set to be the most affected. Decades of cross-border trade have molded the economy here, building out big factories dedicated to producing auto parts and tech parts sent to the United States. Business leaders say that the industry drives the vast majority of jobs here, so tariffs would be crippling. But Mexico's president announced on Monday that she had struck a deal to put tariff threats in pause for a month. In exchange, Mexico would send 10,000 troops to the border and crack down on fentanyl trafficking to appease Trump. AP video by Megan Janetsky, Fernanda Pesci, Amaranta Morentes and Martin Silva.
Here in Ciudad Juarez, along the Texas-Mexico border, people are in a state of limbo. 25% tariffs on Mexican imports were supposed to go into effect on Tuesday, and border cities like this one were set to be the most affected. Decades of cross-border trade have molded the economy here, building up big factories dedicated to producing auto parts and tech parts sent to the U.S. Business leaders say that the industry drives the vast majority of jobs here, so tariffs would be crippling.
Give you at 3 p.m. when you talk again to also
I don't know.
Pause,
I don't know.
like you said.
But Mexico's president announced on Monday that she had struck a deal with Trump to put tariff threats on pause for a month.
Le planteé siempre que queríamos que pusiera en pausa las tarifas desde el primer momento, los aranceles,